So this week's episode of Fruits Basket introduces another new character that is a part of this family. This week's character is the Ox, and it provided for some very comedic, but also some pretty interesting, serious backstory with the Soma clan, and I really liked this episode. It was definitely the most comedic out of all the episodes in my honest opinion. A lot of fun styles with the overall art and just how they would shift it up either in a very basic and just very simple and silly way, to the more ridiculous and detailed comedic shots that just left me laughing. But something I really appreciate, and it's something I've complimented on more than one occasion, is how when we do get introduced to the backstory of what this character's life was like and how it kind of connects with their zodiac or their animal, it's really interesting because not only does it match their personality, but it also leads to some pretty interesting sequences because people just naturally assume something based on the race where different animals acted in a certain way. With Yuki, we have the rat who, if you really look at the tale, it kind of abused a lot of animals to get to where it wanted to go. And I like how you have this ox who kind of got made fun of within the family as being someone who's stupid and clueless because this animal got manipulated by a simple rat. How do you get manipulated by a rat of all animals, especially when you're the ox? And I like how the family seemingly judged Haru for this and kind of made him feel very simple-minded when he just wanted someone to acknowledge who he is based on himself, not a spirit in a previous life, something to that nature. And in doing so, he just naturally resented Yuki without ever actually meeting him. And that's such an interesting concept because it really does connect to that race, which is so interesting just as an individual story, but seeing how people who do have a connection to that animal would naturally form opinions before actually speaking to someone and how it could actually ruin your life. And I love how Yuki is someone who's just so naturally kind even though he's pretty abused himself, and how for the first time in his entire life, Haru was able to not feel worthless because someone believed him. And the first person who truly believed him when he said he's not stupid is the person that he's been hating for unknown reasons. Why was I hating this person who naturally believed me before even really knowing my name? And that's such an amazing story. I really like how in this episode, when you're kind of getting the information about like why they love martial arts, things like that, there's a moment where you see hands kind of cover up Yuki's face before he kind of passes out from his cold because he is sick. And it definitely seems like it was probably Akito probably blinding him, saying, don't look, you gotta follow in my footsteps, don't pursue passions that I don't tell you. Something to that nature is probably what Akito was doing, if not if it was another person. But clearly, Yuki is a very tortured soul, and it'll be interesting to learn as we witness more and more characters, but also just his own personal stories and where it kind of led him, because as we can see, the Yuki that we all know and love is a much more positive soul, and that's thanks to Toru, not to mention Kyo, as they used to just beat each other up, and now the worst they really do is argue, even if they do threaten each other with physical violence. And I love that, because Toru is a character who naturally is making people feel at peace, and not feeling like the head of the family who is just a very manipulative and very just bad person in terms of how they kind of torture people to follow in line, where with Toru, she's naturally someone who just tries to comfort and ignores her own feelings for the benefit of others. And it's really interesting how a character like Haru, who really has no connection to Toru, just naturally says, like, you obviously are doing good. Because from my life growing up, they used to basically just punch each other in the face, and now they're only arguing. Like, that's a very big difference. And it's something we probably don't think about enough, but really, that is how they started off, just breaking down walls, punching each other, and now really, they just argue, and it's funny, and we don't feel like there's any real threat. And it's really interesting to see how far they've come and how characters who don't even know Toru are immediately recognizing that, hey, they're a lot different. I may not know you, but if you're around them now and they're actually a lot better than they used to be, clearly you're the answer and the cure for their serious malfunctions going on in their brain. I absolutely adore it. There's clearly a lot of darkness kind of underneath the hood of this family, and it pretty much seems to all relate back to Akito and also just the race and how animals view the other based on the result of said race. But it was pretty fun, especially just with the darker underlines where you don't really focus on them too much, but when you do, you kind of get a sneak peek of what's to come with the dark history of the Soma clan. But it was a very charming and funny episode, 100%. There were so many moments that just made me smile and grin ear to ear, and it's mainly due to the art style and how they would shift it up in very simple ways, but also sometimes in pretty detailed, funny ways. I just love the idea of Haru, who's just like comes barging in, and right away you can tell he had a thing for Yuki, but I like how it wasn't until the very end that he like admits that it was his first love. But I love just the underlining themes of being like, I'll make you mine, I'll make you mine, I don't care who it is, I'll make everyone mine. And he kind of has a way of being charming where you kind of believe like, yeah, maybe this guy can do it, even though he's younger than the other two. He's got a determination, he's got a fire in his eyes, even though he can't beat someone like Kyo. Kind of believe the man has determination, and the whole dark Haru thing, and then how he has light depending on his mood and just what makes him tick. It's kind of depressing when you see what actually led him to be Dark Haru. In the current day and age, it's kind of a funny thing that he goes off and you can't stop him and he's gonna try to kick people's ass, but then when you actually see what led him to be so dark in the past, it's actually pretty sad with what kind of depression led him to in his family. But it was just fun seeing just the ridiculous shenanigans, the one-liners, and just seeing all the ridiculous faces and just really well thought out shots that, and just the way they were directed and framed. It just made you laugh. You didn't even need to hear them talk, but it was naturally funny. But then when you hear the dialogue, it just sells the shenanigans at hand, and it really cracked me up. I actually thought this would just be, for the most part, a very comfy and fun episode. That's what I was expecting, because really 80% of it was. But when we got introduced to the more personal aspects, like with all Fruits Basket episodes, that's where the episode truly felt complete, because rather than just feeling like it was a fun slice of life episode, no, there's actually story being told for a new character as well as our old and recurring ones, which I absolutely adore. I like how Fruits Basket isn't a show that just keeps introducing new characters and their fun one and done personalities. Not only do they feel like a real person with their own history, the good and the bad, and what they're currently going to do for the story and characters at hand, but it also feels like they have a connection to our central characters, Yuki, Kyo, Shigure. Like, they all feel like they connect because they should connect. They're a clan, they're a family, they should have this connection, and I'm glad that Fruits Basket is going the route of actually detailing and exploring it rather than just saying, here's a random character, they have no connection from the past, they really have no connection to the present, but we're just going to give you a tropey, here's a one and done personality and call it a day. Rather, we're actually getting to see real people, a real family, a real clan, interact and actually make our central characters open up and feel more fleshed out than they already do, while also allowing for present scenes to feel even more alive because of their presence, which I absolutely adore. I'm still seeing some people call Toru a Mary Sue because they feel like she's not, I guess, well developed enough because they're blind and they don't pay attention. But a character like her who has more faults than most of these characters, who just ignores her own well-being for others, she's not someone who just naturally makes everything click in a happy-go-lucky scene. No, she suffers herself, and this is just the beginning of her story along with all these characters. They're all tortured souls, and they all need to open up and grow together, and because of everyone's company, they're all going to grow to probably a pretty good spot by the end. At least hopefully. Like, she's a character who actually suffers, who actually does something good, but it's not like she's just a one and done character who just solves all the problems. She herself suffers, as we've seen countless times throughout this series over such a small amount of episodes. And the few people who say it's not a lot of people, but there are of course going to be a few who say something like that, they just don't even know the true definition for that term, and it kind of drives me insane when I see people say that when we've seen so much suffering for our central girl, and how she's such a great personality but suffers just as much as basically all the other boys. I mean, granted, some of them from their past with their family, they might have suffered more. I'll leave room for judgment for when we do see all of the backstories, but still, calling her something like that is absolutely absurd. Overall, I thought this episode, it had a very good blend of dramatic and just overall comedic. The comedic was definitely the more relevant aspect to this episode, but I felt like it didn't need a 50-50 split. The comedy, it feels like when we have a lot of comedy, it's fine because it's not really trying to be something that's super well thought out and trying to be super deep comedy. It's, here's fun and silly situations, let's have you laughing or at least grinning and being entertained. And that 20 or 30% of just dramatic, it feels like there's a lot of meat, a lot of substance to what's happening on screen, and it feels like it was a good balance. We didn't need any more dramatic and we didn't need any more comedic. It felt like the way this episode was structured, it just balanced everything in the proper way. Sometimes we're going to have more dramatic than comedic. It just feels like for the arc or situation at hand, they need to blend it in a different way, and I'm glad they're not sticking to a one and done formula of always comedic or always dramatic or always more dramatic than comedic. They spice it up and flip it up in the proper way that they should, and it makes Fruits Basket 2019 into something that is so phenomenal. Now, I know for some people, this delay due to tennis in Japan is something that not everyone is going to be aware of. I've seen this plenty of times over the years watching seasonal anime. Depending on the channel that it broadcasts on, sometimes it gets pushed back, so for this week of, as you've already seen, but also next week, the episodes won't be coming out till 9 p.m. EST. However, after that, it will go back to normal. I remember when it happened during the ReZero broadcast, I loved the memes that came from it, because if you watch that show, there's some pretty gruesome suffering that happens, and there's some gifs where it's just like, not the tennis again, and I absolutely adore it. So it is unfortunate for sure, but hey, it's only a couple of weeks, we still get our Fruits Basket, it's not a big deal, but do expect the same thing for next week, and for the episode reviews, it will be coming out the same time that you're currently watching this one, but we will be back to normal hopefully very soon within a couple of weeks, but that's why everything is functioning in the current way that it is. But for everyone who did watch though, for manga readers or fans of the original anime or anime originals like myself, what did you think of this week's episode of Fruits Basket, the new character we got introduced to, and how they're exploring the Soma clan? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and if you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't been new. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.